Hey everybody, Edo here, and as promised, this next League video is a Kickstarter basic about getting a quote from a manufacturer because you've decided you're going to make a game and you're going to have a Kickstarter, and now you want to be smart, right? And you want to make sure you get your costs and you understand the process of making the game before you do your Kickstarter. So that's what this video is about. It's really just about getting a quote. I could spend more time in another video on how to sort of manage the manufacturing process post-fund. But anyway, we're going to talk about some basics, talk about components a little bit, and then talk about the actual quote getting process, okay? So some basics. Making a game, right? Probably three ways you can go about it. The first way is you can make it on your own. Certainly can do it. Some people love doing it, and if you're a carpenter or have the skills or whatever, and that's the route you want to take, go for it. Just know what you're getting into and know how to scale it. There are some people who do that and who love it. Set that aside, okay? Next is print on demand. Now, print on demand is fantastic. Print on demand is a way to get copies of your game made, and there's drive-through cards and the Game Crafter. I use the Game Crafter all the time and love those guys, and a number of others, and many of them also have marketplaces. So you can print, and they let you print in quantities, but it does get more expensive. Really, print on demand is about printing on demand, but if you just want to have people be able to buy your games, you can do that through print on demand. You don't need a Kickstarter to do print on demand. Don't try to set some low Kickstarter level with print on demand. If you want just to do print on demand, just do it, okay? So the last category is mass manufacturing, right? Where you're going to be working to a factory to create lots of quantities of your game. Probably starting at 1,000, maybe at 500, but volumes of games up to 10,000, 100,000, whatever, right? If you're amazingly lucky. So, when thinking about manufacturers, there's really doing it in the United States, doing it in China, or doing it in Europe. And I mean, there's some up-and-coming locations. I know there's a number of factories in India that are trying to get into it. There's probably other ones as well. I'm sure factories are in every country, right? But those are the ones you're going to hear about the most. Europe, for whatever reason, I have been very unsuccessful getting the attention of European manufacturers. I've tried a number of times. They never respond to me. I don't get quotes. They may be fantastic. In particular, if you're from Europe, they could be incredible. But given that I haven't had that success, I can't really speak to that. So then there's the US and China. Now, for many, printing in the US is important, right? Being able to say it was US labor, US factory, all that stuff. Important though, some people who represent themselves as US manufacturers actually are just US frontmen and middlemen who are then having the stuff printed in China and then sending it on to you, right? And very few things could suck as much as doing US printing because you want it made in the US and then it not being made in the US, right? So if you're going to go US, think it through. The other half of US is that all right, let me think about the best way to print. Most games you play are manufactured in China. Lots of them are. Lots of the stuff here. For disclosure, my games have been manufactured in China. Liftoff was with Panda Games, but manufactured in China, and Watts Games is out of China. But some of the challenges you'll face in the US, or the particular one, is going to be price. Even though when you factor in shipping, in most cases it will be cheaper to manufacture in China. And often is the case, sometimes is the case, the quality is also better out of China. So it's sort of tough. And in Kickstarters, when you're looking to go from a Kickstarter into manufacturing, into retail, the margins you face and the extra $2 difference, $3 difference, $4 difference per unit is huge, and it's something you really need to think so and to consider. So if printing in the US is, but if you want to print in the US, print in the US. Doing a Kickstarter is about you doing what's important to you. Don't let that get changed, but recognize the decisions you're making, get quotes from both and understand the margins, get samples, do everything you can to make an informed decision because you're not only making it for you, but you're making it for your backers and you're potentially making it for what you want to do with the next. So just keep that in mind. Okay? either way, the stuff that I'm going to talk about with components could easily apply to all. Everything from now on could apply to either China or US or Europe for that matter, if people like you and they like you better than me. Okay, so let's move on to components. Now, this is a place I think a lot of people have challenges with, because the reality is the only people who care about manufacturing board game components are board game publishers. The average person, the average gamer, no idea what that takes, what it's about, right? Why would you? Except you're now doing a Kickstarter and you're now going to print a game. So suddenly it's important, okay? So a couple things. First and foremost, this is your best friend, right? All components are measured in millimeters most of the time. And, you can just use your hefty ruler to look at your components and think about the different width and length and height, and it'll just give you an idea of what you're talking about. I'm going to give you some other hints and tricks, but that's part of it, right? The next thing is using those print and play services is a fantastic way to get yourself ready for the manufacturing process. I highly recommend it. You should set aside money. Whether or not you're going to use the Game Crafter for manufacturing, I think is a challenge given given that pricing issue. But for prototyping, for reviewers to learn and make a game, they are fantastic. They've done a great job. They continue to level up their services. Boy, am I happy with the Game Crafter. It's really helped my business. But having said that, what's good about them, or any other one, drive-through cards, there's a ton of them, is it forces you to start thinking about your game in specific components and readying files for specific components. So Game Crafter doesn't have an infinite selection. They have a big selection, but they're going to list out different card sizes, right? And so they usually like poker size, tarot size. I mean, they're normal sizes, square. But what you can do is by picking those components out and dealing with setting up the file, dealing with bleed, thinking it through, ordering them, getting them in your hand, is start to see what your game could really feel like if it was made with those components. The important thing to remember is, they're sort of a one-size-fits-many, their business isn't about giving you free reign. Their business is about having options that everyone can use that they can maximize. And so as you're getting to that point where you're finalizing your game, at some point you're like, you know what? I want to do something special. I want to have a magnetic lip. I want to have a box that's this dimension. I want to do this, that, or the other. That's when you start needing to go beyond what is available in the Game Crafter and start tweaking and changing it. But really, setting aside money I would spend before Kickstarter is, again, setting aside the $50, $80, $100 to do a couple prints, getting it, playing it. It'll help you with reviewers again, but also just get you familiar with that process. The real secret, though, is all these games are made by people and companies, and sometimes it's hard to get in touch with big companies. But you know who's really easy to get in touch with? Because as part of doing a Kickstarter and making that decision, you said, I'm going to be public, I'm going to be part of a community, is Kickstarter creators or indie board game publishers like me. We're in these spaces and we're so happy to help each other. Honestly, maybe not everybody, but most people. And if you look at a game and you said, boy, that box Ed had for Siblings Trouble was incredible, or I loved his custom dice, or man, those cards in, Birds of a Feather were fantastic, or Strife, or Shadow Throne, or Biblios, or any of these games that are made by small indie developers, just reach out, say, hey Ed, what cardstock was that? What was the measurement? How did you get that gloss finish? I'm absolutely willing to help with that question. Most would be very comfortable sending you the exact details, which is this line of information that has like the weight and the measurements and all the little details that you get when you're working with the manufacturer. Basically a line of a quote, and pass it along. Am I going to give you the pricing that I got and the different quotes? Probably not. That's probably not appropriate. But will I let you know what measurements I used on my cards? Yeah, the sauce just ain't that secret, and a good manufacturer just call up other manufacturers and figure out how to make something if they couldn't figure it out. But super easy. And so engage with the community and just ask. This box And my relationship with Watts Games to a degree is I contacted Dr. Finn, who did Biblios with Yellow, and I said, hey, where'd you make your game? And they said, we made our game with Watts Games. And I was like, oh, cool. And I got some information I learned, and I reached out, and I've been extremely happy with that, right? So, again, using examples, so getting a base with a print-on-demand service, and then using examples from other people to get those exact values is really important. As you start looking at and getting quotes and trying to reduce pricing and stuff like that, you can also get more information. So really easy, okay? And that's how you should think about components. And as you're thinking about your quote, make the game you want to make. Get a quote for your awesome version of your game. Just do it. You're going to get quotes. Manufacturers have no problem giving you quotes. Get that information. Then realize it's crazy expensive. Then realize you'll never have any margin. And then work it downwards. And then start compromising, right? But figure out what the thing you want to make costs. It's easy. It's worth it. Don't sacrifice before you have to. People are like, oh, I tried to design it down. Well, was there a reason? Well, I thought I couldn't fit this many. Like, make the game you want to make, and then make decisions on how you have to compromise. Okay. Actually getting the quotes. Getting quotes is really pretty straightforward. You can just reach out to a variety of manufacturers. James Matthew has a fantastic list of them all with his opinions on all of them, but just the whole thing. And some are going to make you actually fill out a form online, which is a little harder if you haven't had experience, but many others, especially a number of the Chinese ones, will be very happy to listen to your things and send you a quote very quickly. And that's a good way to maybe get that quote and then start seeing some of the details that you might use in a Panda submission form. And so, you can sort of start doing it and it'll help you do it better. So, but even though you can do it that way, I don't recommend doing it that way. So, what should you do? You should talk to people who have creators who have a relationship with a manufacturer and get an introduction from them and have them introduce you to that manufacturer. I've personally printed with two, Panda Games and Watts Games. I'm thrilled and love Panda, and I'm thrilled and I love Watts. They're a little bit different. I can talk about that in a second, but would be happy to introduce anyone. And here's the thing. Here's why it is a win-win. You're not doing me any service unless you swindle people, right? Unless you're terrible, but I'm going to assume you're not. It doesn't do me any disservice to introduce you to a publisher, to a manufacturer. It is so valuable for me to bring them business. If I bring them business, not kickbacks, but they're getting my work, and then I'm helping them get more work. That means when I ask them for something, they respond faster. That means when I need them to do me a favor and get something shipped really quickly or push it, they're like, oh, that's Ed. He has his business and he's helped us get these other businesses and he'll help us get more. So let's be nice to him. So it's a huge advantage to me to introduce you to somebody. Again, assuming you're not crazy. And two, it's really helpful to you because then it becomes a vouching situation. If you then have a relationship with that printer, and they're doing a bad job, then you have a backup of talking to me and understanding, or maybe I could give you some advice. Or moreover, it puts pressure on that manufacturer to do a good job because now there's sort of two relationships involved. And that's really important in China and anywhere in the US as well. So really best way, find a design you like, find a box you like, find components you like, and then reach out and talk to people. And don't spam and say, here are my components, how much does this cost to make, right? Say, I'm looking and interested in good manufacturers, etc. Okay, so that's a big part of it. In terms of, you're contacting people, you're getting quotes, you're going to start seeing quotes. It's really two categories, especially when dealing with China. Categories with a middleman, somebody in front of the factory, and ones that are more a direct relationship with the factory. So Panda Games has established a team who works with game makers to make fantastic products, to ensure those products are successful, and to coordinate the factory with you. And they're in your time zone, they're ready to work with you, they speak great English, and and they're just engaged in the community, and they go to shows, and they know what good is. They have a real fine understanding of it. Ad Magic does stuff like lots of them are sort of not fronts, but they manage the factory. They work with you. If it's your first time, that can be incredible. If you're doing something hard, something you've never done before, that can be incredible. If you just really want the quality to be outrageously awesome, that could be a decision for you. Just understand you're paying for it. Just understand that the margins, there are more people on their end. You're going to pay more. If you work directly with a factory, you're going to be talking to somebody who maybe has broken English. You're going to be talking in the middle of the night. You're going to be not have a instant backup of people, like keeping understanding what's happening in board game space specifically and working it through. Those things might not be there, and but you'll have a much better price. Much better is subjective, but depending on what's going on, a price you should consider. So definitely, as you're getting quotes, especially if you're like, I'm going to use Panda because Panda's awesome, and they are. Love Panda. At least see what that other quote's going to be, so you understand the value you're paying for, and you can have an opinion about it. And again, having now worked with Watts, I've been very happy with it. Takes a lot more in mind in terms of the design and how I've been thinking about the boxes and stuff, but absolutely can deliver the quality of the experience. So that's another thing to keep in mind. So you're getting quotes, you're looking at them. Last few things to keep in mind. I think there are 3. 1, don't sign the quote. Don't sign the quote. Don't sign the quote, right? They're going to give you a document that says, we need your signature, and you have 30, 60, 90, 6 months to sign this, and it's a good quote. If you don't sign it, it could go away, all these things. And they're going to not bully you, but they'll pressure you to sign it because they want your business. Unless you don't need to do the Kickstarter, right? Unless like the Kickstarter is just this thing you're doing for publicity, which I don't know, maybe you are. But if you actually need the money from the Kickstarter to be successful, do not sign up for thousands of dollars. Don't pay 30% down before. Don't rush it. Put 3 more months on your Kickstarter than putting money down before, because you might not get funding, right? You really might not, and you don't want to be in that position. You do want to probably do a prototype prep with a game crafter and just pay for that, and then just hope you recoup it. But signing up with a major manufacturer to make a game, hold. They'll still be listening to you later on, right? Like, don't worry. The price might, also move a little bit, but it's not worth the risk, in my opinion. Oh, and advice on advice. Know who you're getting advice from, so you can watch my Kickstarter video if you want to know more about who I am and giving advice. Okay, last 2. So, don't be. Okay, there's no. The quote process is really important because it's a key indicator on what the relationship's going to be like. Certainly, it is possible to get false positives. It's possible to be great communication on quote, great experience. They're totally there with you. They feel great, and then you actually give them your money, and then it doesn't work out that way, and they don't pay attention to you, or they didn't do a good job, or whatever. That's possible. What is far more rare is somebody who treats you bad in the quote process, doesn't listen to you, can't communicate, doesn't respond quickly, then suddenly does a great job after they have your money. Like, that does not happen often. So, if you're not getting treated well with the quoting process, don't use that printer. Why? I don't fight to print with European printers because why should I? Lots of options, and I want to work with teams and people that I can connect with, engage with, and feel good and build a relationship with. People I talk to a lot because they're making the thing that is so important to me, right? They're my partner. So, which sort of leads me to the last and final point. And again, this is just getting you to get the quotes. This isn't sort of how to deal with manufacturers once you have them. Another video. Last point. These manufacturers really want your business. Your business is super valuable to them, and never feel like that's not the case. Don't feel small. Don't feel like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know. Engage, be confident, know what you want, tell them or ask for help, but don't feel as if you're not worth your time. They are. The secret is this boon in Kickstarter has been incredible for all of these Chinese manufacturers, because a lot of these manufacturers were typically just in leverage positions with big, powerful publishers printing lots of stuff. You know, the big guys, you know, maybe in the board game space it isn't as clear, but like in Apple. When Apple tells a factory, we need you to do these things, the factory does it. That's a ton of business. They don't want to lose that business to the next group. And the reality is, a small Kickstarter person doesn't have any of that leverage. You don't have that sway over them, which is nice for them. The margins are better because you're printing less. And the chance of them developing that relationship with you from the beginning and then growing with you is immensely valuable to them. They really want your business. They really want your business, and they really want the relationship. And if they don't feel or look or sound that way, the line is long, and you have your picks, right? Get references, good communication, all that standard stuff. You need to be clear, and then have your quotes, know your numbers, have a little bit of range, fill in your stretch goals, always get quotes for your stretch goals or whatever you're thinking you're going to do, and then you can make that decision and move forward. Another video will be about how you actually go through that manufacturing process. So don't be afraid of it. It's really straightforward. If you feel like you don't know the whole measure of component stuff, use Game Crafter, or just pick a game that has the same components as you and just tweet at the guy and ask him for their email. I mean, it really isn't that hard. So, hope it was helpful. More to come. Subscribe, share all that good stuff. As always, play great games and make great games. Thanks.